Hello.
Hello, Mr. Lim.
Hello. Hi. Can you see? Okay, you can probably hear me.
Yep,
Can you see me?
I see a
A frozen picture of me,
frozen
probably.
picture of you. Yep,
Okay,
yep.
let me. The illustration of me probably is more flattering, but let me see what I can do here. Thanks for being here, everyone, and I'm really excited to talk to you. My name is Billy Lim. Um, I just want to get my video working. Hey, this looks good.
Okay, there you go. All right,
Okay.
we'll jump into it. So, um, just for everybody here, anybody new, anybody that hasn't been here in a while, just want to make sure we all know we have a code of conduct, and basically if you can abide by these rules, please stay and learn more. And if you have any questions, there's a link at the bottom. If you have any concerns, that would tell you how to report them. And I will then just introduce myself and Irit here, represent Code for BTV. If you have any questions later, please feel free to reach out to us. And otherwise, Billy Lim from Code for America will be talking to us. He is the senior organizer of the Get Your Refund project or getyourrefund.org project. And I'm going to let him start his screen sharing thing. Let's see, stop my share. There we go.
All right, hopefully this is a seamless transition over to my screen. See what's okay. Do you guys see what looks like a presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're in the right place. So, hello everyone. Good afternoon where you are. Thanks for being here. As I said, my name is Billy Lim, senior organizer with Get Your Refund. It's a huge pleasure to be able to talk to you guys today. You guys are probably facing a lot of snow over in your neck of the woods. It is
Yep.
similar over here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where I'm based right now. Um, so I'm gonna dive right in. If you guys have questions as I'm going through this, feel free to interrupt me. You can put questions in the chat. I love when things are more conversational, so that's always good. But otherwise, I hope that I'm able to get you some information that'll, teach you a little bit about what's going on here. So,
I want to be clear too. We're recording, so if anybody doesn't want to be recorded, don't don't turn on your video or unmute yourself.
good tip, Nick. All right, I'm just gonna dive right in. So, lock and objectives. So, Um, this is a presentation that I give to all volunteers who are either joining for an orientation or have decided that they want to get involved and want to learn more. So by the end of this, I hope that you're able to explain to other people what is the power of the EITC. You might not know what that is. You might know what that is. I will say more on that. And the urgent need to close the participation gap. We'll say more there. Understand why Get Your Refund was created and how it's evolved to serve GAP tax filers better and better, and gain conviction in the role of grassroots people power and its necessity in scaling and expanding access to Get Your Refund, and thus the EITC for millions of eligible tax filers. The heart of the issue. So take 30 seconds and type into the chat. Think to yourself, type into the chat would probably be better. What is filing taxes usually like for you? So we're in the midst of tax season right now. The IRS just opened its doors accepting taxes like on the 12th, so like 4 days ago. Um, and most of us, all of us, have probably done taxes before. What does it feel like, and what does it look like? All right, I see some stuff popping. Yearly waste of time. Someone has some strong feelings about taxes here. Collecting a stupid number of papers from my piles of unopened mails, paying some dude to figure it out for us, reacquainting myself to the process every year. All similar sentiments that I myself have experienced. Feels like a chore, relatively easy, but some degree of stress, hoping the website works. I guys, I feel radical empathy for all of this. So I'm gonna press the button and move on. Unsurprisingly, the experience that we have had is similar to what a lot of people feel. These are the common sentiments. Filing taxes tends to be a boring chore for a lot of people, but it's doable. it might give you anxiety. You might procrastinate on it until the very last day. It might feel a little complicated, and so we get help with it. But at the end of the day, we get it done. What does getting it done look like? We have accountants that do our taxes. We use TurboTax. We're able to get the help that we need. Our GAP client. So this is something that I mentioned in the objectives. So the GAP client is the end user of getyourrefund.org. They are the tax filer that we seek to serve. People who are coming to our website and are like, I'm trying this out because I don't know where else to go. So I'm going to try to get help here. The GAP clients, we'll go more into this, but they tend to be busy people. They are in families with several kids. And if they have back taxes that they actually end up filing, a lot of these families could be getting $10,000 to $15,000 back total from the prior years. GAP clients are also sometimes single workers without children. This is a class of workers called the childless worker, so to speak. They're often neglected and overlooked in outreach when it comes to tax filing and getting these tax credits. Many have low levels of educational attainment. So more than 85% have less than a college degree, traditional college degree. And there are many who are non-English language speakers. They cannot speak English as their first language, and yet they are expected to navigate the tax process in the same way that we were able to. And as is no surprise, a lot of these folks who struggle with English tend to come from immigrant backgrounds. Given this information about the GAP client, let's ask the question again, but let's turn it on a different kind of subject, the client themselves. What is filing taxes like for the client? If you could hazard a guess, what does it feel like and what does it look like? Take 30 seconds and I want to see what people sort of surmise and put in the chat. All right, I see the chat blowing up. Overwhelming, scary, awful, confusing, scary, staring at a brick wall. It's an extremely illustrative metaphor. Confusing, frustrating, like a monumental task, afraid to make a mistake. Excellent. So filing taxes for GAP clients feels a lot like what we predict. And that's not the issue, right? Like, we know that it's difficult for folks who don't typically have access to these resources where tax filing is easy for a lot of folks, like many of the people in this room. In terms of what it feels like, there are either real risks or there are perceived risks. The emotional risk is that there tends to be a lack of support and clarity. How am I supposed to do this? If I've never filed my taxes before, who do I go to? What if I'm a recent immigrant who can't speak English very well? I can hardly use technology. How am I supposed to use TurboTax? What is TurboTax? What are all of these things? As a result of that, there's compounded frustration, confusion, and a sense of feeling overwhelmed. Like, I can't find the help that I need. So why should I do this? There are also financial risks. So there's the perception that if they make a small mistake, as someone had mentioned, if they make a small mistake on their taxes, that could lead to an audit or me getting in trouble somehow. I might not even know what the word audit means, but I know that it's probably a bad thing to tell the government inaccurate information about my money. And that would lead to unintended consequences that would add to existing financial burdens. The GAP client tends to be economically burdened, and so they might face student loans, might be paying child support. They're in dire straits. The GAP client also experiences instability at a level that we typically don't see. Again, the people in this room. Major hardship or life events that includes job loss, divorce, death of a family member, sickness. And when I say instability and major hardship, I'm not talking just one and done. These are folks for whom hardship and these seismic life events are continuous and unrelenting. And you can imagine that when you're going through all of that, when you're financially unstable and you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, it's like filing taxes is not the number one thing on my mind. Like that is probably not the number one thing that they're prioritizing. But what we've learned is that when folks do file their taxes, folks in this gap, they actually become privy to a lot of to many tax credits that could actually improve their financial situation dramatically. I want to mention this last slide that low income tax filers especially will choose, as I've implied, not to file their taxes at all, rather than make that risk of incurring a mistake that'll cost them. And so the ultimate consequence here is that the population of people who actually need it the most and could benefit the most are leaving money on the table that could bring significant financial and emotional relief to them. But it doesn't have to be this way. Okay, so I'm going to go into a pretty vital history of like, what is the EITC, this mysterious acronym that some of you have probably Googled by now, but maybe not. And if you haven't, then you're gonna find out what that means. And I'll tell you a little bit about Get Your Refund. Okay, so where did this work come from? Get Your Refund, actually, even though you may know this, we had our pilot year last year. The work for Get Your Refund actually started all the way back in 2018 when we launched our workforce discovery process. We had hoped to identify a way to help the workforce system better support people in poverty and to help them access and keep living wage jobs, distinct from low wage jobs. Many people can find low wage jobs, but that is not the same as finding a living wage job. After a year of research and prototyping, we learned a really important lesson, which is that low income families need a very basic level of stability before they can take advantage of any new structural opportunities and get ahead. So without gas in your car, you can't get to that training program or job interview. That's just one very small example. Cash supports that would allow folks to distribute those sort of resources in areas that will enable them to pursue new opportunities. Those cash supports are powerful because it gives people the flexibility to solve their own problems in the way that they elect to and what they want to prioritize. There's a certain dignity in cash support that's different from other kinds of public benefits and nonprofit services that one can get. So here's an example of what I mean. So this is a woman named Naja who we met in Pueblo, Colorado. She has 3 kids and is a workforce client. She was able to find a job with the support of the workforce system in Colorado, but she was fired on her first day at work because of a small fine that she wasn't able to pay, which showed up on her background check. So just lost that job. She was getting other supports from the workforce system, but it was really only cash that could have directly solved this problem of just making sure to pay that fine. There's no nonprofit service is going to pay that fine for her, right? It's just the sheer material impact of like, I need cash. But Naja isn't alone. The need for cash supports is deep and it's widespread, and a little money goes a really long way. The most recent data from October shows that nearly half of Americans would have trouble paying for an unexpected $250 expense. Half of Americans. It's like, I'm smiling and I'm like, haha, but it's also like ... That's horrifying. That $250 can put half of Americans probably at some level of risk. And unfortunately, when you break this down by race, even further inequities come to light. And so the lack of financial security is not just a financial justice issue, but it's also a racial justice issue. So how do we get this flexible money that we know that people need into the hands of the people who need it the most? Well, in that year of discovery that started, those 2 years of discovery that started back in 2018, we learned that there's a program that can help, which is called the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit. So big reveal, that is what the mystery acronym stands for. The EITC is a tax credit. It's very simply a tax credit for people with earned income. But to receive it, you need to claim it on a tax return, which means you need to file your taxes. And so we sort of come full circle here. So for a little bit of background about the EITC, you're probably wondering, there are a lot of tax credits. Why are you focused on this one? Stop being so obsessed. I'd be like, but wait, there's a reason we're obsessed with it. In 2017, the EITC delivered $65 billion to to 27 million households. That is the largest government benefit available for workers. Along with SNAP, it's one of two of the most effective anti-poverty programs in the United States. There's a lot of money left on the table, and we call this the EITC participation gap. So that's the phrase that I mentioned earlier. The clients who are in this gap comprise 1/3 of eligible households in our country who aren't claiming it currently. Nationally, low-income households are missing out on close to above $10 billion. That's an average of about $1,300 for families in the participation gap. So if families in the gap were to file their taxes and claim these credits, they'd have an extra $1,300 each year minimum.
Is it 1,300 per person or in the family or for the whole household?
I think it would probably be per person, but that's a good question. Let me get back to you on that. So filing taxes will not just get you the EITC, it'll also get you your stimulus, for which you do get disbursements of money per child, as well as state tax credits. Here's what that could mean for a single parent living in California, for instance. So once you combine the first and second stimulus payments, state and federal tax credits, and you're getting close to double income for the year. We have a huge moment right now where people are tuned into government services. They're thinking about the stimulus. They're thinking about ways that the government can actually provide this flexible cash support to people. And that provides an extra incentive for people to file right now. There's a lot of money that we can get into the pockets of people who need it. And if you add in the 5 million people who are likely to miss out on the stimulus because they haven't yet filed their taxes, that's over $16 billion that's potentially left on the table by low-income families who need and deserve that money. And you can go back and file 3 years previous if you haven't been filing your taxes year after year. So you can get even more money back. And so with all of that money on the table, you might be wondering, as many of us were at the time, why aren't people filing if all of this is on the table, right? Like, we know this. A lot of people know this, that you can get a refund, Why aren't people doing it? So we know that people need flexible cash, and we know that there's this pot of unclaimed cash hidden. But in terms of why people actually aren't filing their taxes every year, the answer is really complicated. And it's personal, and it has everything to do and nothing to do with taxes. So we conducted research with over 100 people as part of our user research design. And we saw that there are folks who are eligible for the EITC but not filing. And we wanted to understand their stories, their needs, and their frustrations. And so why do eligible people not file? Among the many reasons, and these are things that I started to touch on earlier, but there's more here. Among the reasons, they miss out on the benefits they've earned from taxes. We heard overwhelmingly that they think they don't have to file, that it's not required, especially in the lower income brackets. My parents are refugees from Cambodia. I grew up in a household where my parents made a total of less than $10,000 a year. My father, for most of my my childhood, I know distinctly did not file his taxes and did not think he had to. Because why? Why? If you don't know if you're going to get any money back, it might cost money to file your taxes, and you might even lose money if you make a mistake or have to pay on your taxes. We heard story after story: death of a close family member, shifting caregiving responsibilities, divorce, and certainly for the 2019 and 2020 tax seasons, immense personal and financial instability that was caused by the pandemic itself. People lost jobs, they moved. Their life situations were dramatically altered, and their finances were a part of that. Emotionally, people felt overwhelmed. They weren't sure how taxes would impact their student loan debt, their child support payments, and they're not sure how their full financial picture would even be pieced together, or how all of this would fit. A lot of folks knew that there's help that is said to be free, right? So we're not the first people to say, here's free tax filing help. The problem is that there's a distrust. people feel this could be a trick or a scam, and that there is trustworthy help that people could get, but then it becomes really expensive. And so our clients are people who are working, they're going through all of this, but they're also working full time, often several jobs. They're caring for their families at the exact same time. They can't always show up somewhere during the business hours to get the help they need. And this is exacerbated for people who are far from city centers where there are even fewer options. So think of rural areas or exurban areas. Overall, the research taught us that outreach alone isn't enough to overcome these challenges. It's not just a matter of saying, hey, get your refund. Problem solved. It's, it's more than that. Just telling people that they're eligible for a tax credit doesn't mean that they'll be able to access it. And so we needed to build another way and engage them differently. And so we took in all that research and all those stories, and we used it to inform this tax tool that we now call to get your refund. We knew that we had to build something based on the research that was free and trustworthy. So these are two things that don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's not free or trustworthy. You can have both at the same time. People express greater trust in free tax help that is nonprofit or associated with the government. So know that. We wanted to make sure we built something that was clarifying. So people would need to be able to ask questions about their specific situation and get answers that give them the confidence and clarity that they need. We wanted to provide something that was thorough, especially for people who haven't been filing for several years or have other complications like self-employment income or scholarships, other more granular circumstances. And we wanted to provide something that's accessible. So whenever people are ready and wherever they are. When we think of those needs for our neighbors who are struggling, especially this year, and when we consider these principles that are actually really quite a low bar, right? Just providing something trustworthy and accessible and personalized. Wow, like how is that really asking for so much? To provide that for people to claim access to a benefit that they've already earned, that they're entitled to. We believe that the government has a moral obligation to get low-income filers the tax help that they need. And so the IRS currently has two initiatives to help low-income filers with tax prep. One is called the VITA program, which I'll explain in a second, and Free Tax File. The intent of Free Tax File was to provide free self-preparation software for low-income tax filers through existing tax software companies. But the software is difficult for a lot of clients to navigate. And because each option has different eligibility criteria and supports a limited number of tax situations, clients often end up paying unexpected fees when they use Free File. At the end of the day, it feels neither free nor trustworthy for a lot of people. Then the alternative is VITA. Some of you have maybe heard of VITA. You've seen this acronym. If you haven't, that's okay. It stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. The VITA program was founded by the IRS 30, 40 years ago. While the IRS still sponsors and monitors VITA, it's now decentralized and it's run by grant-funded community-based organizations who recruit, train, and manage the volunteers who prepare taxes for free for low-income households. Surprisingly, and I was actually shocked when I first found this out, but among the available services, VITA volunteers best meet the needs of people in the gap. So VITA volunteers provide trustworthy, clarifying, and thorough service and has an accuracy rate of 93%, which is higher than even the paid preparers. That's crazy. And this is a free service, and volunteers are able to give that level of service to people who need it. And some of you are probably wondering, okay, Billy, you're telling me about VITA. This seems really abstract. What does this actually look like? And so let's imagine you visit a normal in-person VITA site, not during a crazy pandemic that's raging across the world. Let's assume that's not happening. And you go to a VITA site. What would happen is first, as a client, you gather the tax documents you think you need. Second, you go to a clinic on the open day and time. You fill out an intake form. After waiting an hour or longer, you'll meet with your tax preparer. Third, a VITA volunteer will prepare your return. So that tax preparer is also a VITA volunteer. And after waiting, you meet with a supervisor who does a quality review of your tax return. The client, you sign the return, and the supervisor at the VITA site submits it to the IRS. Done. And so even though the VITA model is really accurate, you can see that it requires that the client come to the clinic fully prepared and ready to invest a good chunk of their day, a good chunk of time. Of course, due to the pandemic, this face-to-face service that low-income households have been relying on for 30, 40, maybe close to 50 years, that came to a grinding, sudden stop last March. It just, no more. You need help this year, you can't, you're out of luck. So there are a lot of compelling and pressing reasons that VITA providers across the country turn to Get Your Refund when we were just about to launch the product as a way to better serve the clients that they've been serving for years in their communities when they could no longer do that in person. So I'm not a coder, but I think that some of you may be, if not all of you. That's a guess that I would make. That said, for those of you who are in that space, I want to tell you a little bit about how Get Your Refund was actually built. So we believe that digital services could help VITA expand. And so last year, 2020, we decided to pilot a fully online intake and case management system with VITA partners for the 2020 tax season last year. That's when getyourrefund.org was born. And this is what the original mobile website sort of looked like. You can see it's simple, it looks friendly, approachable. And in looking at how to serve our clients, we decided that we needed multiple service models to help clients who needed different levels of support. And so built into Get Your Refund, there's a VITA location finder to help clients connect to the in-person VITA sites that were nearest to them. We provided a valet option. And so VITA sites that were partnered with us could manage clients who were quote unquote dropping off their tax returns online or in person. We offered a digital intake. So this is our most traditional and mainstream model. We support fully digital end-to-end VITA services. And we had to scale our pilot last year faster than we ever could have imagined we needed to. This can also be done over the phone. We also provide do-it-yourself with help. And so we've collaborated with VITA partners to provide support to clients using what is called the Tax Slayer FSA. So that's a tax filing software that is sort of the bread and butter of the IRS outside of Free File. And then there's service routing. So we help clients find the service that's right for them. We leverage FAQs, link to key IRS tools, and provide them with chat support and other resources that'll connect them with VITA certified volunteers to get them that real-time support. And in terms of the results of last year, our pilot year, we did a lot. So we helped 14,850 people file returns from 50 states. We helped 480,000 people with referrals and support questions. We proved that we could reach people. We also proved that we could reach the right people. It's possible. We obtained an estimated average of $1,355 in refunds per client that came to us. 17.3% of submissions included prior years, meaning that these are folks who had in fact missed out on their EITC over multiple years. And then we also proved that when we reach people and we reach the right people, we can actually help them. And so we prepared 16,375 tax returns for that close to 15,000 client pool. We delivered close to $62 million in flexible cash to low and middle income families across the country. That was in just last year when we were expecting before the pandemic to launch with just 4 partners. And instead we launched with close to 50 because the pandemic happened. And we were like, we need to scale this up because people need the help. And we were able to do it with the help of volunteers, and we got millions of dollars in cash to people. I want to just put in front of you what is the most gratifying part of the volunteer work. And I think any person in the Get Your Refund team will tell you this. It's when we hear from clients that we've actually helped them. So the client response has been remarkable. We've talked with people who have filed for the first time in years, or even for the first time in their life. And with a woman who had been filing with HR Block, for example, for as long as she could remember. But in the example of this woman, she tried Get Your Refund this past year because she couldn't afford to pay HR Block's fees. And she called it, quote, honestly, the best tax filing experience I've ever had. And it's a good thing that the service is good because our clients need this free, clarifying, thorough tax report support now more than ever. We're hearing increased urgency in 2021, desperation in the worst instances, and a need from our clients, many of whom have lost their jobs, to file for the first time so that they can just access the stimulus payments. They don't even know about the EITC. They're just trying to get their stimulus. Like all of us, like many of us, I'm trying to get mine, and so this is real. And we've heard from a lot of people that we serve how important it is, this personal touch, this high touch approach that we have with our program, particularly for clients who are stressed or worried or confused or have multiple years of back taxes to file. And these are people who need and appreciate this personal one-on-one support that they can get really only through VITA, and thus through Get Your Refund, which draws on the VITA program strongly. And that's why our customer satisfaction scores are nearly off the charts, averaging 9.5 stars out of 10. So a lot of this is stuff that I've gone through. I wanna be sensitive to time. And so clients need help completing the process. We know they appreciate the personal touch, and it's really people power, the volunteer effort that I'm leading up this year, and we crazily scaled up last year. I can't tell you how crazy, but it allowed us to scale up the partnerships and bring on more than those initial 4 partners. And we need more volunteers to reach clients effectively. Our objectives for 2021, we want to continue to reach eligible people who haven't been filing, but at scale, more and more of them. We want to thus scale up high quality digital VITA services. So the volunteers I'm recruiting, we need folks to get their tax certification. It's quite easy, at least the initial certifications, and to get help to these clients coming to our door. We want to continue to address key client burdens. We want to seize opportunities for greater automation within the product. So this is it's a unique volunteer opportunity because not only are you providing direct client and partner support, but you get a chance to quite deeply inform the product development process at Code for America for this product, which is not something that is common, but it is something that is required as part of the experience, because volunteers who are helping our clients and partners know best how does the product need to change in order to best serve the client and partner better. And we want to respond effectively to the upcoming stimulus. And so I'm going to breeze through these next slides so I can leave time for questions, because I've just been talking at you. Forgive me, but I hope that I've at least been entertaining in some level. I want us to think about our positionality, power, and impact. So think about yourself, think about this group, think about brigades nationally. If you're here, I'm here.
Looks like he's frozen. Is anybody else seeing that he's frozen?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
I'm here. You
Okay.
didn't lose me yet. Haha. So this is hilarious. Guys, can you see this slide still? Am I still
Yes,
sharing?
the slide
Okay.
is still there. Positionality, power, and impact.
I'm gonna continue as if nothing happened. So
I'll
going
just
off without a
I'll
hitch.
edit that out of the recording.
Yeah, please. It never happened. No documentation. So if you're here, power, control, and choices, we tend to have that in these spaces. You're also probably someone who, if you're here for this session, you're someone who believes that problems of inequality are serious, and those problems, as well as human suffering itself, tend to bother you. And you also believe that these problems can be solved. So when I think about the volunteer effort here, recruiting people to help clients file their taxes, to help our partners use our service to support these clients, we're trying to mobilize people power in an unprecedented way. And what that requires, especially because a lot of us are coming from contexts where we don't necessarily have tax experience. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not that, and I'm not even someone who, I didn't spend my life thinking taxes are what I want to do with my free time, right? But this is more to push us in the direction of thinking, how do we think about the flexibility and control and choices that we have, and how we use those resources that we're at our disposal to create more material impact for other people, right, who don't have those choices? And how do we produce more control and choices for others in a system that otherwise deprives them of these things? From that sort of awareness and philosophy, I want to frame the volunteer experience. I am here to teach you a little bit about Get Your Refund EITC, but I mean, if it is not obvious, I'm also here to hopefully try to get some volunteers out of this group. So I want to say that in terms of the volunteer experience, accessibility is really big. We can't do this work without you. Every person can make a difference, no matter what skill level, ability level, or time commitment you have. What matters to me and the community is that you make it a point to do what you can. You show up, you make it a point to show up, and you keep coming back. Collectively, we could have impact that is beyond measure when we think about what we do as a community. In terms of what it is to be a volunteer, it's a chance to feel engaged with the wider world at a time that a lot of us are feeling isolated. It's a chance to contribute to impact at scale, to take an active stance in a year when less privileged communities will continue to struggle the most, to participate in and help build a community of passionate, smart, and mission-driven people. And it's having an open heart and an open mind. It could be, depending on your level of involvement, applying your leadership capabilities to scale an unprecedented economic justice project. It could be using critical skill sets to inform the development of this product, engaging in direct service to bridge the distance with communities you're committed to and yourself, and living your values and striving to create the world that you want. With level set that the volunteer experience, the product is in development. We're constantly iterating, so expect change and reprioritization constantly. There are different ways to be involved, whether you're a subject matter expert in this particular area, if you're a generalist, or you're a little bit of both. Flexibility and being solutions oriented is highly prized, and expect to be heard and valued as a volunteer. We have 2 core teams. I will send out more information about the volunteer teams and sort of areas of where you can plug in after this, but the 2 core areas are client support and partner enablement. On these teams, you're either providing direct support to clients coming to our door, literally helping them get through the door. Do you have the right documents? Do you have the right identification? Great, let me help you get that. Once you have it, moving you on to the tax preparer, right? So making sure they get past that first barrier of just having their documents. That's one of the main volunteer roles. The other is in partner enablement, assisting partners as they're using the back end of Get Your Refund, what we call the hub. That's the case management system, assisting them and providing them with support when they're troubleshooting issues. And so enabling them to actually continue helping our clients in real time when issues crop up. There's an experimental team where a lot of the user research and coders, user research design folks and coders on the team tend to gravitate to outside of the client and partner support roles because it's where they can test new ideas. Some really exciting stuff happening in this team, doing exploratory work for the next tax season. There's a training content team that's doing important work, helping build the onboarding process for new volunteers, such as yourselves, hopefully. A translation support team to make sure that our materials get translated into languages that are high need. And then lastly, an organizing team to help continue to grow and sustain and mobilize this community. So if you're someone who's like, I love to talk to people, and I could be you, Billy, I could be giving this presentation to other brigades, let me do it. I would love that. Let's talk. So closing out and next steps, I actually don't think I updated this but this is actually fine. So disregard the date, but I'm going to send an email. I'll reach out to Nick. I'll send an email to all of you with information for how to get involved. It'll include these steps, so no need to remember everything now. We'll have you join the Slack channel where all of our vols are. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me. But otherwise, folks, that's it. And I just took up all this time and I'm so appreciative of you listening to me. That said, Nick, are we at time? And then two, if we are, or if we aren't, would there be a minute or two for questions that I can try to answer off the bat?
There's no reason that we don't need to turn off the Zoom. We are at time, but that's, just what we had said. It would run. So if people want to stay and ask questions, they are free to do so, and we will, stick around until people stop asking questions. So, does anybody have any questions?
It's okay if you don't have questions. I know it was a lot of information. This is also the first brigade that I presented to formally, so thank you for being my first brigade that I presented to formally.
It seems like the kind of thing that it should be happening around the brigade network, but I think because this is recorded, we can also we can bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So if I have a question, what are your recommendations? How do you actually reach those, how did you call it?
The gap client.
The gap client. Is that something that is done already? Is that something that you'll, curious about that.
So there are multiple ways that we reach these folks. The lion's share of clients that come to us are clients that our partners have been serving for years. And so when the pandemic happened and our partners were like, hey, we need to use your service to serve our usual clients, we ended up ultimately creating unique URLs for each of those partners. The partners gave those URLs to their clients and they said, hey, clients, you usually come to us in person. Instead, use this link. It's going to take you to a website called getyourrefund.org. And if you turn in your tax documents there, it'll send your documents to us and we'll process your documents like we always do every year, but instead digitally this year. So that's the lion's share. We also do a mix of paid and earned media to reach clients who are out, who aren't currently connected to one of our partners.
So the current group of gap filers is probably not significantly larger than what Vito is already serving beforehand, but it's a better experience.
Well, yes, I think there are parts of the, if I'm honest, I think there are parts of the gap that population that we've done a really good job of reaching, and there are other parts that there's a lot of work left to be done. I think specifically of the more rural tax filers who may not live close to a current Vita site. And so if they don't live close to one of our partners, they're not being served by them, and they're not also being hit with the earned or paid media. They don't know that we exist, so it's, we've got some stuff to do, but that just means there's a lot of possibility.
Thank you. Let's look at Evan's question. What kind of options are there for folks who might not have stable housing or are unbanked? Can they get their refund as a check or debit card?
That's a great question. So I know that the population of individuals who are experiencing homelessness is a constituency that we are prioritizing right now, and it's actually in the experimental team. Some of the user research folks are working on a project where they're doing experiments with a select number of our partners to test what outreach methods are the best for reaching these subsets of the gap population, with that population of individuals experiencing homelessness being a prioritized subset. We've not done a good job of reaching them in the past. I think part of our journey over the next year or multiple years is figuring out, well, how do we not just reach those people, but when we reach them, how do we get them the money that they need? And so it's a depressing answer, a little bit, but hopeful one. We don't currently serve that population very well, but it's something that we're committed to and we're trying to do better and better.
So Evan, this may be an opportunity for you to inform that by volunteering as well. I don't know.
This might be a great opportunity, Evan.
Yeah.
Would highly encourage it.
Kirsten is asking about getting the onboarding email next steps.
Yep.
And I think that you're going to send that to me, and I'll send it to everybody who was in the Zoom effectively.
That would be wonderful. Either Nick, I'll either send it to you, or if you guys want to, or if Nick, if you can send me if you guys are okay with it, if I can have your email addresses, if Nick can send me that, that'd be wonderful, and I'll send it out to all of you. It's really quite easy to get involved. So onboarding, you've done this orientation, you would get your certifications. There are 2 certification tests, 10 questions each. Got to get 8 out of 10 right. They're common sense questions. Like if someone tries to give you a tip, like pay you for XYZ thing, should you take the money? Like that's the level of, so you'll see. But those are the 2 certifications. You do a training for the back end of get your refund, and then you're good to go and start serving clients. So that's what I'd say. But
okay, that's good. So yeah, we'll get it out. I think we'll send out the email. It shouldn't be considered something that you're committed to doing it if you get the email. It's just being put there in case you want to do it.
Please do it.
Yes, Code for America is not known for spamming people, by the way.
We won't spam you, I promise. We won't spam you.
Okay, so Shoshana's good. No questions. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming up here.
Bye, Carter. I guess Carter left.
Yeah.
Well, see you later.
Or actually, Billy, I have a question a little bit here. So how are you able to respond to, I guess, there's a difficulty and challenge in not being charitable, but being assistive. And does your program explicitly address that?
Can you define charitable versus assistive?
Sure. So as a person of, of privilege and power and culture and society, who I do a lot of work around health equity, and am a minority in the business I work with and in all the projects I work on, then it's just like my own naivety and lack of life experience as a person who believes himself to be white. Then like it's easy to feel like, okay, oh, I can be so helpful. Like I'm, but people don't want charity, right? They want equity. It's so I guess I'm just curious, do you get to that, do you end up in that philosophical situation, or even have you in your, volunteers who identify as white, do you experience any like particular challenges in volunteering that where there's well, anyway,
yeah,
I just want to be conscious of showing up in a way that's like less oblivious.
Carter, you're so thoughtful. Way to be aware of your positionality, and I do think that it's something that we and granted we're very new, right? So we had our pilot year. We cobbled together a volunteer program last year from scratch, and it was not formal at all. And this is our first attempt at scaling up a formal program. Part of my vision for that and what I'd like to do is make sure that as part of the volunteer experience, everyone receives a minimum level of training that is diversity and inclusion oriented, because of the nature of the populations that we're working with and the nature of the volunteer contingent. There is, I think, a pronounced gap in terms of experience, which I don't think precludes people getting involved, right, and doing the work. I think that it does present a certain level of obligation that you take the time to learn about and engage directly the people that you're trying to serve. There are volunteers we have who come and they want to be just say in experimental only, and they don't actually want to do any of the client support work. And on one hand, I'm like, you might be someone who strongly believes this is where my skill sets lie. I want to help, but this is where I want to do it and can do it best. And I'm sympathetic to that. At the same time, I say, it is not possible to contribute optimally on the experimental team or any team if you don't have a pulse on what the client is experiencing and you don't have an acute awareness of how the client experience is evolving as the product continues to evolve and change. And so continuing to have that engagement with the client and actually learning what their experiences are about that's a dimension of the volunteer experience I think is integral. And I wouldn't say that because your background might be different from that of a volunteer that you're not able to contribute effectively, or even that it might not be the most effective way to contribute. To your point about charity, one could say that like there are ways to be more effectively altruistic with your time and life and energy. You could, this is a philosophical conversation we should we should have maybe to a certain extent separately, but
yeah, no, I appreciate that response very much. Yeah, and I think it's just very, it's helpful. Maybe
you should read the book, the what is it called? The Most Good You Should Do by Peter Singer. He's an Australian philosopher, and if anyone wants to talk about this, let's hop on Slack sometime and we'll have a little chat.
No, I'm reading Black Doctor in a White Coat, which is great because I'm involved in recruiting for the COVID treatment and vaccines through the federal programs, doing that. So a lot of nonprofit marketing kind of stuff and data. But I love taxes, and math is funny. So yeah, and I'm a horrible volunteer. I never ever do it. But this one, I'm like, I think I can get on board with this maybe.
Guys, hold this one accountable.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good
Come
luck.
on, partner, the meeting is happening. Let's go. So guys, are there any other questions I can answer right now?
I had one quick question.
Yeah, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So does this tool for back taxes, my understanding is you have to mail them in. Does no?
With our service, you do a digital upload.
Even if it's for prior years?
Even if it's for prior years.
Really? Okay.
So
Nice. All right.
Well, that takes care of that. If they're being mailed somewhere, I don't know where they're being mailed to because it's not anywhere that I'm aware of. So.
Well, if you work with the IRS, if it's for a prior year, you have to mail it in. You can't just e-file it. But I'm guessing your service just mails it in, right?
We do all digital uploads, and we're an IRS sponsored service, and I'm not at the level where I'm the one personally coordinating with the IRS, but we work with the IRS very directly in building out our services. So I'm pretty damn sure that our process is legit. But as a curiosity, that's something that I can try to find out more about in terms of why there's the divergence in our process from the typical process.
What do you mean divergence?
Like if people are supposed to be mailing stuff to us, like.
No, I mean like, in other words, like if I were just like, I'm like, okay, I got some back taxes I need to mail in. I'm not using this tool, and the IRS is like gonna be like, well, you just have to mail it in, right? But you're saying this. I don't know. I guess I don't understand. So your back end is doing this digitally entirely, even if it's for back.
Yep. So there for the past three-ish years, folks can upload their taxes for each of those years, and we'll help them file for each of those years. We've done that for many clients.
All right.
Definitely a process.
All right, sweet.
So.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that it's legit, but I'm pretty sure it is. So I hope we're all good there. But okay, folks, thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. So cool to get to know brigade members. I think you're such an interesting and really talented bunch, and I just am so grateful for the time. So Nick, I'll coordinate with you on getting information out to people. Don't forget me. don't forget what you've heard today. Never forget. Teresa, thank you so much. HS, thank you so much. You probably have a different first name, but I'm calling you HS. Irit, if I know I'm mispronouncing your name. Thank you everyone so much. I'll talk to you later and see you again soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Billy.
All right, thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye.